How's your family?
My family are good.
Nice.
It's always a work in progress, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. It's what we're doing, learning all the time.
Yeah.
Did you have a chance to have a look at the little book? And
I did. I'm halfway through the smaller one.
Okay.
Not so much the strategy, the fill out.
Sure.
Again, I'm not
Still
very good at
writing. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've had other kind of books like that with programs that are coming here and similar to you, but a different subject. But similar, they've given me books.
Yeah.
And started filling them out, but
doesn't work. No.
Yeah, so, I don't know if it's. And another thing that doesn't work with me is even my father said, "Oh look, if you need to make a decision on something, write a list, pros and cons of."
Doesn't work.
And I think I must do that, but I never do.
No, and I think it's a learning style. So, do you know about the different ways our brain operate?
I've probably been told, but
yeah. Anyway, so that's the deal. Our brain just operates in different ways, and that once we understand the way your particular brain works or my particular brain works, we just use the systems that work for that.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, perfect. And so if you're
so I wasn't too worried this time.
No.
I mean, it only happened just recently. Going, I must write a list, and then because I can when I put my mind to it. I can go, right, I'm going to do that task, and I do. But when it comes to that list, I thought a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to write this list. Never happened. I thought, you know what? I don't think it's going to happen.
No. And you've got other ways of making sure that your life works.
Yep.
Yeah, and just use those. That's what I think.
Well, that's what I've come up with, so I don't feel so guilty anymore.
No, don't ever feel guilty about it. I have, like, one of my eldest kid is, like, clever off the planet. The second kid's clever, but he's dyslexic, and so he needs completely different ways of being able to record information and share information. He doesn't write, and he watches TV, and and in order for him to get over himself, to know that actually his brain just worked differently, we had to remind him he was clever and competent, but and to find strategies that work for him, not for the rest of the world. He's earning 3 figures. He's doing fine, thank you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just about, it's about like, well, I've got a squashy nose. I have to accept that that's who I am.
Yep.
And I have a brain that works differently. And the trouble is, of course, when you grow up in a family where people expect you to behave in a certain way.
Yep.
And can't accept the reality of who you are. So then we start to learn that we might be odd and slightly unlovable. And so that then gets this story in our head about who we are, and we just continue to build on that story, even though actually nobody really believes that, but inside, the little child inside of us believes that still.
Yeah, yeah, certainly been there as well. It's just taken me a few years to sort that out, like 25 or so.
Well, I'm glad you're there, because there's many people who haven't ever got there.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate too, like, stuff like fashion and that, on social media, it's just so hard now. Like,
it is.
Skinny is the best and all, so if you're slightly overweight or you're just a bigger figure, it's really
mean.
In your face.
We're really mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why, as parents, we have to remind ourselves to help our children to learn to be competent early.
Yep.
And the earlier that they can say, I can do my shoelaces up, I can carry my bag, I can walk down the stairs, all of those really basic things help build confidence in their kids.
Yeah, right.
So welcome everybody to Resilient Kids Podcast. I'm Madeleine Taylor, and today I'm interviewing Tony, and I'd like you to introduce yourself, Tony.
Hello, I'm Tony Kemp, father of 3, and have 2 kids with my wife living at home. And
And how old are your kids, Tony?
my kids, one's turning 8 soon, and the other is 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've got another child, did you say?
Yes, she doesn't live here in Wellington.
Right.
She's up the line a bit, and she's 27.
Okay, cool.
She's a school teacher.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It is pretty cool, and it is pretty wow. She got married last year.
Nice.
Another wow moment.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. And so now you're back into parenting these lovely school-age children, primary school-age children.
Yep.
And I asked you if you had something that you wanted to talk about today. Do you want to share with us what that is?
there's always lots to talk about when
Yeah.
it comes to kids. But one thing I noticed, and I was aware of it, but as they get older, and obviously we get older, is the screens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I guess when they're babies, you know, you turn the TV on and they like it and you get a bit of chill time and that's okay, and it's still TV programs. And then when I guess they get to 5 or 6, that's when YouTube sneaks in,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of gaming and I guess Minecraft, and then
Mm-hmm.
it kind of elevates from there. I'm probably talking more about my older boy, 10.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to notice certain moods and the, the addictive.
Right.
Well, this is from me anyway.
Sure.
And then when you really start noticing them is when you're like, it's not too late, but you're in the deep of it.
Right.
Slightly. Well, that's just from my house. And it's like, right, okay. And that's where it's like, whoa, how are we going to manage this? So you try different things and...
The really cool thing is that you've noticed now.
Yeah.
And once we start to notice, we can then take action. But until we notice, we can't do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
So fantastic on that. What do you know then about changing habits within a family?
I don't actually at the moment, but I know I have to work in with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
We have to work together.
Lovely.
And then I think working with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, working in with the wife is another exercise or whatever altogether.
Of course, yeah.
So it's actually really beautiful because I'm aware that we need to do this. So, and I think it's a waiting game because myself and the wife, you know, we talk and we don't always agree on certain things, so we have to work that out.
Sure.
And meanwhile, we have to work with the kids, and it feels like it's a slow progress, which is fine, but it is progressing.
Absolutely.
Little by little.
So what's your goal, particularly for your son? What do you want?
I don't actually have a goal.
In terms of his being able to be in the world, what would you say you hope for him?
I guess just like any parent, you know, they grow up with manners, confidence in themselves. I guess all the things that we look back going, oh, you know, I wasn't very confident right up till the age of 30 or whatever. You know, you hope that for your kid. But in saying all this, I do notice too of the difference between my daughter and my son. And like sometimes I look at my son going, wow, when he's in that kind of environment, not the screens, but you're like, wow, he's very thoughtful. And
lovely.
You know, if we take him out to somewhere and he's, you know, please and thank yous. And then my daughter's different, you know, she has some other quality. I'm like, well, okay, so they're slightly different, which is great. But it's noticing that and then working how to get that out of him.
Right.
When the screens are
okay.
With still keeping the screens in the, because I mean, you know, we all want to watch TV now and again, so
it's about getting that balance, right? And
getting the balance,
and knowing how much is enough screen time. And so what are you worried about in terms of because you talked about addiction, the addiction side of it?
I'm worried about the addiction side, probably more with my son. I don't know if it's more of a boy thing than a girl thing, or worried about that. Also, you know, they have friends at school, easily led. You know, they're on games together, so you can hear some of the kids talking and what kind of language they're using.
Right.
And you know, I guess part of it's fine because we've all been through that. We all have that mate that swears more than the other friends. But yeah, I guess it's you notice it rubbing off on them.
Okay. And so that doesn't fit with the values that you want your family to grow up with, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth is like, whoa, where's that coming from?
So as a parent, how do you manage to support your children to think about the impact they're having, or to understand how that might damage them further into the future?
Well, at the moment, again, this is all just fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, oh, you can't say that. It's very hurtful. But when my son in particular is in that moment, it just goes over his head.
Right.
So I guess I try, and my wife does, when he calms down, just to, remember just before, what you said, it's not very nice because of, A, B, and C. And hopefully just some of that will get in.
Nice. And so you're not trying to do it in the moment because you notice that he can't.
Well, we do it in the moment.
Okay.
But we just kind of mention in the moment, hey, that's not very nice what you're saying. That's quite mean. Mm-hmm. And then we let him do his, I don't care. And it's like, okay. And that's when, I guess, one of us later on, maybe when he's chilled or going to bed, say, hey, just before, let's not say those kind of things.
So do you know what's happening in his brain at that time and why it's so hard because he's on the device? Do you know what that's about?
It's not necessarily on the device.
Okay.
I'm thinking of an incident that happened last night.
Okay. There's always lots of them, don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, this particular one, his sister was racking him up, and it's just a circle of destruction.
And we're learning about conflict, and we're learning about communication. We're learning about loving each other, even when we make mistakes. So I think that it's practicing, and so some of those times are really important not to shut them down, because kids are learning about how to be powerful and what works and what doesn't, and they're practicing.
Yep.
And obviously you want it to make sure that nobody's getting physically damaged, or the psychological damaging isn't as terrible as it could be.
Yep.
Obviously you're wanting to get the balance right there too.
Yes. The one thing I've noticed with screens is, we do have those days where they've been on them for 4 hours because, it's been a busy day. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, again, yesterday I picked them up from school and said, right, I'm probably a bit generous giving them 3 hours. Okay, we're going to shut them off at 6. Mm-hmm. So after school, not quite 3 hours. And it's putting that seed in their head going, right, come 6 o'clock, yep, Dad's going to come up, and they know. Mm-hmm. So it's not just me shutting them down when I feel like it. Mm-hmm. But again, they shut it down, but then their mood still is slightly, I'm bored, and it's like.
So do you know what's happening and why they are feeling that way?
I can only imagine that, I've taken that thing away. 3 hours, they're quite addicted to what they're immersed in what they're doing. And then even though I've given them warning, and I usually say, hey, look, 5-10 minutes to go. I guess when you do shut it down, it's in the brain, right? It's like, oh.
So what's happening, and this is some information that came from a guy who does some podcasts specifically around tech balance. His name's Tano Benz, and he's done one about the impact of dopamine on our kids' brains. And dopamine is the hormone that makes us feel good about things. Yep. And one of the things that he talked about, it's like interrupting someone in the middle of sex.
Yeah.
No, not a good idea. And so that's the experience almost that these kids get.
Right.
And so the tech is designed to make us want more and more and more. And the more we give them, the less that it's like any addiction, the less we feel satisfied by it.
Okay.
And so therefore we're seeking more and more and more. And so that's what we're up against as parents.
Yeah.
To be able to help understand how much of our children's time do we want them to be spending in here, and what are they not doing because of that. And you've got some lovely limit setting that's going on, but it's that transitioning that's really difficult.
Yeah, it is early days.
Yeah.
For our family at this point in time, but which is good. You got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've noticed there is a difference between watching TV and actually being on your laptop.
Yes.
I find, I mean, we try and shut the computers and the YouTube and the gaming down at 6 or 7, depending on the afternoon or the night. But so they're not left dry, we always go, oh, let's have a family TV episode, come 7:30, 8 o'clock, where it's 20 minutes of, or start a movie that, we stop half an hour through. And that, they're a little bit more chilled. And I guess it's because of the flickering and what they are actually, I mean, those YouTubers that just, they do so well. I mean, it's good on these young guys that are making careers out of YouTube, but, just the yelling and it's in your face and it's quick, snap, bang, all these flickery. And so I'm guessing there is a difference between television, watching a episode of Bluey or whatever kids program.
It's different,
Yeah, into watching.
And so you might be interested in exploring the kind of brain research that talks about why this is different, to help you to understand and to also think about what do you want for your family. Yeah. And how do you transition into other activities? And if you're wanting your kids to be lovely and all the things that you talked about before, competent and confident in themselves, how do you give them experiences that help them to be confident and competent?
Recently, we've been starting to play cards, just last card. So
Lovely.
We'll go, hey, let's have a game of last card before we watch the start of the movie, which has been really great. It's the four of us sitting around the table.
Nice.
And we've done that with board games, but it never seems to last. I mean, it always comes back, but it never seems to last where we're doing it every night. I guess, there are nights where everything's too busy. But I'd like to, add more, like a board game. We've done the card game. We've done other stuff, I can't remember, but I guess it's then balancing that out so we're not doing the same thing every night.
Right.
So they're not getting, again, bored of that.
Yes. Yeah. And so
puzzles another one.
That's right. And so thinking about what are the activities that the kids can choose and you can choose and your wife can choose, so that you all can do things that you enjoy, which is not screen time if you're wanting to diminish the amount of time they spend on the screen.
Yeah. I mean,
and what you're doing in that space is building connection
with the family,
Absolutely.
Which is great. Yeah, which is very important. So I, because I remember, I'm not sure about you, but when I came home, we always watched TV after school.
Right. We didn't have TV when I grew up. We had dogs to feed and, animals to look after and chores to do.
I remember. Yeah.
So it's a different world, isn't it?
It is, but I didn't. I remember my grandparents going, "Oh, the TV, you'll get square eyes." But I must ask my mum. I don't think we were that misbehaved because we were watching TV. I mean, this is back in the 80s, so we still had to be patient. You had your ads, you couldn't just watch a movie when you wanted whatever movie it was.
That's right.
So I guess we were lucky in that sense, and it was, that technology was just taking off with gaming, and no one had the money to, well, not many would have had the money to buy a arcade game to have sitting in your lounge.
That's right. And so what you're talking about is the ability to be able to be patient and to not just always have our own needs met immediately.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting research about the impact of children who don't learn about managing immediate gratification and how we can parent in a way that supports their ability to do the things that you're talking about. Because if we need that immediate gratification all the time, we often get really cranky and upset because it's not happening. And how does that play out if you're wanting to be with your friends or if you're wanting to be with a partner, and it always has to be your way? So we're setting our kids up for a bit of conflict in the future if we don't teach them those really cool skills.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So what's your go-to strategy for supporting your kids now? about spending more time with the family?
We don't have a go-to strategy. I mean, again, I feel like we're just trying different things.
Right. Isn't that great?
I mean, we do live busy lives. I work a lot of weekends, but we do try and go, hey, look, beautiful day Saturday. We've got to do something. Let's walk down to the beach. Let's go for a walk up a hill,
Nice.
And we do fit those in. We could fit more of them in. But as long as, I guess, we're talking about it and seeing what works, like the card games, that's working. Let's keep this up for a while.
Yeah.
We know that board game works. Let's bring that one back. So it's just adding that to our collection of...
Lovely. And now you've got your outdoor activities as well. And I was talking to an optometrist a while ago who was talking about the impact of being on the screens for kids a lot. And she's saying one of the strategies is to have children outside looking, because you have to look into the horizon for about 60 minutes to 90 minutes a day. Interesting number, eh?
Right. Excuse me, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's just in terms of helping to have good eye health because of the muscles, being able to be using distance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally get that.
So this is an ongoing learning as parents today, and
Totally.
and helping parents to be able to feel that you can be the leader in your family and you can support your kids to be able to be how you want them to be.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Yeah, it's hard work.
It is. It's hard work. It's taken me a while to kind of accept it and just actually enjoy that hard work, enjoy making the kids' lunches, enjoy making the beds. Just make it into your routine, and your kids notice that as well. It is hard to give them some attention when you're doing that. That's where the screens come in.
Yeah. And so I think that there's another opportunity there to be doing things with kids so that they also learn to be competent to make sandwiches, to be able to make their beds, even if it's not perfect.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
And so that you can be having fun with the kids as you're teaching them to do those things, and they can be proud of their achievements around looking after their
Yeah, and they do actually help now and again. So they do kind of have the flow of what's happening.
Great.
Yeah.
And they're getting old enough now to take some responsibility. I was talking to a family last year, and their, I think, 9-year-old, and they decided that it was his job to bring the wood in because they have an open fire. And, like, he took to that like nothing else. He was so excited to be the boss of the wood.
Right.
And it was his family responsibility. Yeah, it was really special for him.
Oh, and how old was he?
I think he was about 9. Yeah.
Right. I must get my son on to...
Yeah.
Yeah. No, cool.
So what else are you thinking about today that you'd like to say?
Geez, it's a good question. I don't know. It's I'm just finding at the moment it's a really work in progress. But the stuff we have covered is stuff I'm noticing, and I'm noticing more to try and fit whatever I need to do or what I'd like them to do, like having a job. I haven't got that far yet, giving them a responsibility job, so that would be, no doubt they'll come back going, okay, how much do you pay?
And so you can...
But I don't mind paying them a little bit to, not like brushing your teeth, but more a job that helps the house, loading the dishwasher, give them $5 or something a week for doing that. Or
so it's thinking about how do you want to teach about money as well. So that's part of what you're also doing by that, and thinking about what are your family values about contributing to the family where you don't get a reward. So in terms of, what rewards do you get as a dad for making beds? And so helping your family to understand that actually there are things that we do because we are a family, and there's no immediate reward for that. There's a thank you, that was you've made a good bed, or you've done whatever.
Yep.
And so thinking about what do you want to teach your children about that and as a value, and then also about what do you want to teach your children about money management.
Yeah.
So there's kind of two things. And
there is two things there, yeah. You're right. I guess we're still working on the values, like just doing, for instance, making the bed without any kind of reward except that you've got a nice clean bed.
Yeah.
We're working on that one.
And I really like what you're saying, that actually it is a work in progress and we're changing things up as we notice things. And that's how we parent. We learn things as we go along, and all of a sudden we're noticing one of our children doing something and think, oh, better do something about that. And then you concentrate on them, and then you notice the other child. And, it's this constant being aware, isn't it, of what's happening and how you're responding as a parent.
Yeah, totally. And how they respond to, like, my daughter, when she's in a rage, we've got to let her calm down before we can.
Absolutely.
And there's no point trying to argue with her. She's like a hurricane of destruction. You just got to let that hurricane move through the house until it's settled, and then we can. And then she's open to listening, and just hope not too much stuff gets broken on the way.
And then thinking about, as she grows up, where she's allowed to rage.
Yeah.
And it may be that actually she's to rage outside, and that's the family role. So, we can do these things and our children will follow them. And as long as we stand strong and they know that we mean business, not in a mean way, but just in a really clear, assertive manner.
Yeah. I mean, with my son, we've taken like his PlayStation off him for a week for I can't remember why. But noticing his attitude that week was just, whoa, that's, really changed. Yeah.
Right. How do you mean?
He was just more responsive and, did stuff, and I guess the games he was playing just changed him.
Right. So you noticed he was calmer and
yeah. And just I don't know, he just different.
Yeah. And
in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. And I think so that gave you some really good information about.
Oh, totally, yeah. And at the moment his cord's broken on his controller.
Right.
So it's great. So I'm delaying getting that fixed.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to use all of those cunning strategies as parents, because our kids are often one step ahead of us.
Yeah.
Hey, well, thank you for having a conversation with me today. I really appreciate you putting aside the time, and I will share with you some resources that I've come across recently about good parenting gaming sites to help you think about supporting your kids on gaming.
Yep.
And also the connection to the TED Talk around managing the balance.
Awesome.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.